Hello, and you are listening to Eco Justice Radio, a project of SoCal 350 Climate Action. Our show presents environmental and climate stories from a social justice frame, featuring voices not necessarily heard on mainstream media. Eco Justice Radio acknowledges that we record the show on the traditional territory of the Tongva. Welcome. I'm Jessica Aldridge. On today's show, we are discussing revitalizing Detroit, one hive at a time. I will be interviewing Paule Jackson and Nicole Lindsey, co-founders and co-executive directors of Detroit Hives. Paule Jackson and Nicole Lindsey are both lifetime Detroiters. Their nonprofit organization, Detroit Hives, works to create sustainable communities and bee populations by transforming vacant lots into pollinator-friendly spaces. Nicole is devoted to altering negative stigmas about bees by informing people of their crucial roles and benefits to the environment. She also teaches children about apiology. Timothy comes from a background of photography and advertising. He is focused on making Detroit a bee city by repurposing vacant land into pollinator habitats. The overarching goal is to improve the quality of life not only for native plants and insects, but for the surrounding community. Urban bee farms of Detroit are not only rebuilding honeybee populations, they are also rebuilding the city and uplifting the community. Since 1950, 61% of Detroit's population has moved away in hopes of better opportunities. Whole neighborhoods in the inner city have been abandoned, leaving overgrown lots and social issues for those who choose to stay. Detroit has gone from one of the United States' most prosperous cities to one of its most distressed due to financial mismanagement, leadership failures, and a car industry in peril. 30% of the residents live below the poverty line. However, Detroit is currently experiencing a bright transformation. Community-born programs are regrowing the city, raising up the residents and entire neighborhoods. Urban beekeeping happens to be one of those solutions forging a new path. Nicole Lindsey and Paule Jackson of Detroit Hives are generating a lot of buzz by activating vacant lots in the inner city and turning those spaces into urban bee farms, and doing so in a way that uplifts long-term residents and doesn't lend to furthering gentrification. Through their conservation and awareness efforts, educational programs, and health-based initiatives, Detroit Hives is creating a safe home for bees and the community to live, feed, and thrive. Nicole and Timothy's inspiring story of community restoration and greening is one that can be cross-pollinated throughout the United States and beyond. Thank you for tuning into Revitalizing Detroit, one hive at a time. I am your host, Jessica Aldridge, and it is my honor to welcome our guests, Paule Jackson and Nicole Lindsey, co-founders and co-executive directors of Detroit Hives. Welcome to Eco Justice Radio. Thank you, both of you, for being on the show today, Timothy and Nicole.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. Like I said, you're the founders of Detroit Hives, an organization that's working to create sustainable communities and bee populations by transforming vacant lots into educational apiaries. And before we get into the great work of Detroit Hives and the cross-pollination connection between the bees and the community, let's get to know the bees. These amazing little community-oriented insects that are pollinating our food and our environment. Why are they so crucial to our global ecosystem, and what is happening to our bee populations around the world?
Right. Very good question. I'm glad that you asked that. So pollinators like honeybees, beetles, ants, even wasps, they're responsible for our food systems. They help pollinate 3/4 of the foods that we eat today. So without pollinators like honeybees, we wouldn't have any of our favorite fruits that we like to visit and purchase at the grocery store today. We pretty much have corn and eating potato chips and
soy
and junk food
and wheat.
So it plays a huge impact on our nutrition. And as we continue to save the bees, we're working to save ourselves we're working to find healthier choices for food as well. So it's really important to have pollinators, cross-pollinate our fruits and vegetables.
And what's happening to those populations, those bee populations around the world? Because from what I hear, they're declining, correct?
Right. There's been many studies and some proven facts where there's been a decline in bees. Many have contributed this decline to chemicals and pesticides and herbicides. But the real number one threat to our pollinators and insects have been a loss of habitat, deforestation. Many of our insects have been displaced due to roads, highways, and communities. But here in Michigan, Detroit is considered, a greenway. We have so much abandoned or vacant lots that has been boosting native bee populations. In fact, many universities, such as University of Michigan and Michigan State University, has conducted studies where they said vacant lots have been helping boost native bee populations, and bee populations are higher in urban cities like Detroit. In fact, there has been a study with the USDA in 2018 that said there's been an increase in bee populations, and Michigan ranks number 4 in the state with the highest bee population in the United States.
And people are probably thinking, well, how are pollinators or native bee populations boosting in our urban areas here in Detroit? It's because they have pretty much organic sources of flowers. And so nobody's spraying chemicals or pesticides, insecticides, or anything like that. So they have a free range of tons of native flowers that are thriving here in the city, and nobody's spraying any chemicals on them.
That's right. What Nicole mentioned is that the vacant lots are creating ecological balance. There's biodiversity, where there's an environment that supports all living things, not just our native bees, in which Michigan is home to 467 native bee species, but also our honeybee populations are thriving off our vacant lots as well. So it creates an ecological balance for not only just honeybees, native bees, but also fowls, pheasants, and many other different types of insects and wildlife, even deers.
I want to talk about those vacant lots for a second, because the story of bee habitat loss is one that shares a unique similarity to Detroit. And according to the 2010 census, the population of Detroit has decreased by 61% since 1950. How are these struggles similar between like the beehive or the bee population decreasing and what's happening in Detroit? And for those of our listeners who aren't familiar with the history of Detroit, can you expand upon what's been happening in the community and why there is this influx of vacant properties and lots?
Yeah, I will we like to associate everything with bees and people. We call it beeple. Mm-hmm. And as you may have heard, there's been an issue with honeybee populations, what we call CCD, colony collapse disorder. And for those that may not know what CCD or colony collapse disorder is, it's where honeybee colonies are packing their bags, they're getting up and they're leaving. They're leaving the environment they're in. And the reason why they're leaving is because it's not conducive for them. It's not a thriving environment. It may be an environment that's filled with chemicals, parasites, or just maybe something that is in an area that's not, beneficial towards them.
But also a loss of habitat as well.
Also a loss of habitat, lack of resources. The same thing that's been happening to our residents of the city of Detroit. It's pretty much considered the same thing. I would say like the same thing with CCD. When you have lack of resources, when you have lots of crime, when you have the unemployment rate, when you have other resources in other cities or other states, some families have packed up their bags and they're leaving. When you have a government or a city that's lacking, like I said, opportunities, residents are looking for other resources. So many residents have left. Many residents have lost their jobs due to lack of resources, and some had to relocate for better opportunities.
So we saw a lot of people moving out to the suburbs.
Moving out of state, relocating. Like I said, they had other jobs that was available for them. Many resources have left. When you have a lack of habitat, you have a lack of community. Many residents have departed. So you lose a lack of community in some of these neighborhoods.
And saying that, what inspired you to start this organization, Detroit Hives? What is it that you do with Detroit Hives? And how did you get turned on to the bees?
Very good question. So there was a lot of things happening, I would say, up until 2016 in the city of Detroit. We've seen a lot of revitalization. We've seen tons of companies coming back to restore the downtown area and rebuild that classy name of Detroit. There were so many media outlets putting out a lot of stuff about their city as far as the vacant lots, the abandoned lots, the crime rates, and it wasn't being labeled as the place to be. It wasn't the place to be, according to media. But there were many people trying to change that efforts and change that narrative. However, we felt like our inner city communities was being left out of that story. Many people, when they traveled to Detroit, they mainly visited downtown, the downtown tourist attracted area. Very few people would visit the inner city neighborhoods, less likely visit the people that resided within those neighborhoods. So I and Nicole wanted to find a way to change that narrative. We wanted to find a way, how do we change the narrative what people think about the inner cities communities, but also the people that resided with them. And we came across an article that same summer of 2016, where it was a call to action for the city of Detroit. They were looking for neighbors and residents just like myself and Nicole. They were looking for nonprofit organizations and community block club associations to buy back some of the vacant lots that they had here in the city of Detroit. See, at that time, the city of Detroit currently had 90,000 vacant lots. And these vacant lots are causing issues in our community, issues around blight, crime, just not safe for children to walk up and down these neighborhoods, mental health issues, public health issues, but also overall lowering the value of quality of life for our residents in our neighborhood. So with that being said, we saw this as an opportunity to get back. And once again, we wanted to find a way to change the narrative, but we know in order to do so, we had to create an idea that was out the box, an idea that no one has ever heard of, an idea that would inspire and spark minds. So originally, we thought about a peacock farm in place of a vacant lot. We thought it'd be a cool, unique idea. No one's ever seen a peacock farm in the city of Detroit, nor do they expect to see a peacock farm in the city of Detroit. It should be a cool project where local students or local schools can come learn everything about a peacock and can feed a peacock. We figure a peacock is low maintenance, it can survive all year round. And then with all this so much vacant lots, it'd be a great space for some of these communities to learn about peacocks. We still want to do that project, but right now we still focus on one vacant lot project at a time. In addition to that, we thought about our urban campsite, a place where we can register with Airbnb, find ways to drive economic mobility in our community, but also find ways where people outside of the urban setting can connect with residents in the city of Detroit. And then lastly, of course, what's been done before, our urban garden, a place where we can address the issue of food insecurity in our neighborhood. All of these were great ideas. We had them on our vision board. We would think about them. But in actuality, we go back to our day-to-day operations, whether it's me in photography and advertising or her in customer service work. But things got personal. Around the December of 2016, I suffered with a really bad cough and cold that I tried to get rid of, and it was not working. I tried home remedies. I tried over-the-counter medication, and I threw in the towel to go see a doctor, whereby I was placed on antibiotics, and I was still dealing with my cough and cold that lasted well over 2 months. I mistakenly, and I do mean I did come by mistake across the powers of local raw honey. I wasn't looking for it. I went into a local convenience store in Ferndale, Michigan, and I had this really bad cough that was so recognizable. I would cough like almost every 3 seconds, that the store owner recognized it. And when I walked into the store, the owner said, "Young man, you should try some of our local raw honey. It can help with that cough and cold that you have." As soon as he said that, I laughed at him like, "Man, that ain't going to work. Let's try X, Y, and Z, and honey ain't going to do it." He said, "This honey is not like most honeys. It's local, it's raw, and I purchased it from a beekeeper." And he caught me by surprise because I never heard of the words local raw honey, and I for sure never bought anything from a beekeeper. I don't know a beekeeper. I just something I see on National Geographic, and it was just a distant separation from me. Not in my walk life, never seen one ever or heard of them. So I asked him, "What's so special about local raw honey?" He gave me this really long rundown on how honeybees create immunotherapy through their product, how they visit our local flower spores for nectar and pollen, and sometimes that pollen help alleviate our allergies. But in addition to that, he talked about the wildflowers. That's where the real health benefit is located. And the nectar from the wildflowers has so many great benefits to it, from things like dandelions and clovers. And when he mentioned dandelions, I said, "You mean them things that's always on our vacant lots that we see, that we always spray and try to get rid of?" He said, "That's medicinal, that's healing?" He said, "Yes, it's highly medicinal, and it has so many health benefits. And honeybees collect that nectar from there, and they make honey out of it." So that caught my attention. He sold me on that product. From there, I began to consume the local raw honey morning, noon, and night. I would have 3 teaspoons in the morning, afternoon, and evening. And after that third week, my cough and cold had went away. From there, I began just to dive in and learn more about this local raw honey because I had so much of it left over. I discovered that it's great if you're pre-diabetic or if you're dealing with diabetes. That really caught my attention because I was looking for ways to eliminate white sugar or artificial sweeteners from my diet. And I learned that if I consume local raw honey, it was safe to consume and it won't spike my blood sugar. In addition to that, I learned that honey serves as being topical, meaning that you can place honey on the top layer of your skin, and it can treat any type of ailment like a scar, a cut, or a burn, or dealing with eczema. On top of that, I learned that honey never expires. It never gets old. So you're talking about a product that works just like a Swiss Army knife. It's a tool. You can open it up, and it has so many different resources. It never expires. It tastes good. It serves as a cough remedy. You can place it in your hair. You can place it and use it as a Band-Aid. Just like many other people, I just wanted more of it. I began to buy so much of this local raw honey that, unfortunately, I bought all they had at the store. Nicole began to see my interest in learning more about honey, began to learn more about honeybees, and I began to learn where I can buy more local raw honey. She made a simple suggestion that how about we transform a vacant lot into a bee farm? From there, as so ridiculous as that sounds, I said, let's go for it. Let's do it. So from there, we pollinated the idea of Detroit Hives, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization working to create sustainable communities, not only for pollinators, but for people as well, by transforming vacant lots into educational apiaries and or pollinator habitats. Currently, we exist in 17 locations, and we're managing 47 honeybee hives in the city of Detroit, while also working to build pollinator habitats for our native bees. Through our Bee to Change educational program, we've exposed over 2,500 students to the importance of bee conservation.
Yeah, I want to get to those programs in a moment, after we come back from our break here in a second. We got about 4 minutes before the break. You said that you had how many hives currently? And then what is your goal? Like, how many hives do you want, or that are you looking at developing in Detroit?
Very good question. So, yes, currently we exist in 17 locations. These locations are by way of buying back vacant lots from the city of Detroit or Detroit Land Bank. Also, we partner with local schools to expand our mission. And then lastly, we partner with urban gardens to help expand our mission. So not all of our sites are vacant lots. Once again, we partner with local schools or also community gardens.
Or community organizations.
Community organizations, absolutely. Now, the second question was, remind me one more time. It was a two-part.
How do you want to expand? Like, do you have this goal?
Yes.
How many hives out there?
Originally we had a goal of installing 200 hives by the year 2020. And boy, have things changed since then. I think right now we really changed and made a pivot from hosting over 200 hives to working to create bee diversity and inclusion. And what we mean by that is that we're working to create ecological balance to support native bees and non-native bees. Now, unfortunately, honeybees, they are a non-native bee species. They're introduced species to this region. They're not from here. And sometimes too many hives can somewhat make it quite a bit challenging for our native bees if there isn't enough habitat or resources for them. So until we can create more resources for our native bees and honeybees, somewhere around our limit is between 50 to 60, it will be our new goal. And just like I said, as we work to host honeybee hives, we're also working to create pollinator habitats.
Nicole, you had mentioned at the top of the show the importance to the ecology that bee hives and bees have. Why are bees so important to urban landscapes in major metropolitan areas? I think most people think of them as like pollinating farms, but why is it so important to metropolitan areas?
They're great for urban areas, especially for like cities similar to Detroit. So with Detroit having so many vacant lots and lands, there's an opportunity for people to activate those spaces by turning them into urban farms, or a lot of people turn it into gardens. There are low-cost, sustainable cause that they can do with those properties. And so with people creating so many little farms, gardens, those are great to help pollinate those fruits and vegetables and trees. Also, we're creating habitats for them. So as you know, Detroit is not going to have over 75,000 vacant lots for too long. So what we're doing is making sure that we're reserving these spaces when we buy back land from the city, that we're reserving these spaces for our native bees and our honeybees. So what we want to create is this ecosystem that involves our insects. So I'll always say we're kind of like the little spokesperson for our insects. Honeybees has always been like our little gateway bug to learn about other insects. So if you see that there's a decline with our honeybees, you have to know that there's going to be a decline with other insects. They're important to our earth as with anything else. So when you think about rebuilding your community, you don't want to displace them. So we can make sure that we reserve these spaces for them. And people have to keep that in mind too. When you're developing urban areas, make sure you're keeping these green spaces. Green spaces is great for boosting your mental morale. So you need those spaces to kind of like alleviate stress, and then it just makes life easier.
Such a great
If I can add a few things to that, with urban areas, I think also these type of projects creates career opportunities, diverse career opportunities for our youth. Also, it finds ways to create economic mobility for creating jobs. In addition to that, educational opportunities for children to learn about conservation. Most people really don't know where food comes from. They don't know that there's a process, there's a harvesting season. So really understanding where food comes from. But lastly, really what's really important with pollinators in urban areas is addressing the issue with food insecurity. Most residents don't have access to fresh organic food. We have access to liquor stores, gas stations, and fast food restaurants. So by being able to address this issue, by partnering with urban gardens, by growing your own food, we can solve the issue with food insecurity.
Yeah, and we're going to get back to that. We have to take a break now, but we're going to get back to that in the second half here, because that is definitely a conversation we want to have. So hold on, y'all, and we'll go to break. Hey, listeners, quick break here. We hope that you are enjoying Eco Justice Radio. You are listening to Revitalizing Detroit, one hive at a time, with host Jessica Aldrich, myself, and our guests Timothy Paul Jackson and Nicole Lindsey from Detroit Hives. Nicole and Timothy, in addition to expanding Hives and some of the programs that you're working on, what is your overall goal with Detroit Hives within the community?
Right. Our overall goal is really to restore those blighted vacant spaces in the city, or create a stronger sense of community, trying to create spaces for people and pollinators for them to thrive and to learn about the importance of bee conservation.
In some areas in Detroit, they could be labeled food deserts. You were just speaking to, before the break, to food access. And food deserts mean that people living in those areas have limited access to fresh, healthy food, and grocery stores might be at a minimum, or even if they exist at all, right? So can you speak about the issues, expand upon this idea of food deserts, food access, how that's affecting urban areas, and why beehives and honey farms help to address those access issues and support local food security initiatives?
Absolutely. So let's talk about honeybees for a second. Inside a hive, you have forager bees, and their job is to go and scout for food, to forage for food. They can fly up to 3 miles looking for local groceries. Local groceries in form of nectar, pollen, water, and propolis. But a good sweet spot for them, without traveling so far, is about 1.5 miles. Very similar to our residents, or very similar to us as a community. We don't want to travel an hour or 2 hours just to find local raw food or just to find healthy food options. We want to be able to travel 5 or 10 or 15 minutes to be able to get fresh organic food. So once again, a lot of our areas are suffering from or lack of access to fresh organic food sources or good choices or opportunities to find food. But we are exposed to a lot of unhealthy choices, whether it be gas stations to find food choices or liquor stores or fast food restaurants. And what's great about being able to provide these honeybee hives in urban gardens is that whenever you have honeybee hives paired with an urban garden, you're guaranteed to see an increase in your yield. That means whenever you have honeybees, you're going to see more food. Urban gardens help provide food security for our pollinators, and pollinators help provide food security for us.
But also having a very local source of honey. At the time when Tim was sick and the owner of the Ferndale store said, hey, it's up in Quebec, Michigan, which is some hours away. Nobody wants to drive, like you said, hours looking for local raw honey. We wanted to make it extremely local by putting honey in our city.
Yeah, and he caught me on that word local because I never heard that part of Michigan. But I knew it was in Michigan, but I figured let's find a way to make honey extremely local.
And extremely accessible, too, because I think many of our listeners accessible from a financial standpoint? Because I think many of our listeners might think that honey is really expensive, so they don't buy honey due to that price. And so accessibility on affordability too, I'm assuming, is very important, especially in where we have food deserts.
Absolutely.
How do you see beekeeping playing a role in the restoring of existing urban communities, and in a way that doesn't lend to further gentrification, but instead uplifts the long-term residents?
Beekeeping is not new to our culture. It's not new to people of color in our communities. It's the loss of education. When you think about individuals, great individuals like Benjamin Banneker, when you think about Dr. George Washington Carver, Dr. Shirley Ann Jackson, Dr. Charles Henry Turner, all were beekeepers. Many people don't even have a clue that they were beekeepers, but they were all beekeepers. And they all played a huge role in environmental science. Dr. George Washington Carver, they had an apiary at Tuskegee Normal, which is now known as Tuskegee State University. Every student at Tuskegee Normal had to learn beekeeping. It was a part of their curriculum. This is a historically Black college. You have Dr. Charles Henry Turner. He was the first scientist, as well as first African-American, to discover that honeybees can see shape and color. It's just, when it comes to beekeeping and bees and insects, I think that there's been a loss or disconnect when it comes to nature and beekeeping. But right now, Detroit Hives and many other beekeepers alike are working to connect with that history and reconnect people back to the land.
Also, to add to that is that me and Timothy are native Detroiters. We are bringing back community in our own cities. So representation definitely plays a part in
revitalization.
Yeah.
It's one thing to see change happen outside of your community. Many people look for city government or politician, maybe a multi-millionaire developer to come and create change. But it speaks volumes to see someone from their own community be able to create that same change with very little resources.
And that concept of this imagery of bees as these pollinators and hive creators, and how that sort of mirrors what's happening in the community, or mirrors community in general, period. I mean, how do you see that as well? Do you see that as this mirrored reflection of one another?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always tell people, to have a hive mind. Inside a honeybee colony, the workers are all female, even though the bird doesn't have to have a bunch of females doing work. But, when it comes to working in a hive, everybody does their part for the greater good of the hive. So everybody has a job that contributes to the greater goodness of the hive thriving successfully. So like the queen, she's the one that lays the egg. She's the heartbeat of the hive. You have the foragers who are responsible for getting the nectar and the pollen and bringing it back to the hive. Then you have the nurse bees. So we come together and we play our part in revitalizing our community and bringing it together. We're just like a honeybee hive. Like you said, we mirror that. When people see us working together and cleaning up those lots, then another person was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can do my part in, cleaning up or doing whatever it is to bring a community back together. And then once we place in those hives there, you have to talk to the residents and let them know what's going on. So we get to know each other. And then we also have community events as well.
Yeah, our events do a very good job in creating community outreach. Mm-hmm. It's not just about putting hives in places only to support the conservation. Once again, it's about people and pollinators. And that's how we're going to work to reverse this decline. We all got to play our part in planting bee-friendly or pollinator-friendly flowers. We got to do our part in educating others on the importance of bee conservation and educating the next generation as well.
Let's talk about some of the programs affiliated with Detroit Hives, your organization, and how these are growing community. First, what is the Be the Change program?
Yeah, so the Be the Change program is an opportunity where we get to expose and educate inner city youth within underserved communities on the importance of bee conservation. We provide not only an education experience, but also a hands-on experience where our apiaries not only serve as bee farms, but also outdoor learning spaces.
Is there any special programs that are happening around the Be the Change program right now that you want to tell our listeners about?
Right now, we just kind of getting right back from COVID. COVID has pretty much put us on set us back quite a bit, but we had to go to a virtual program. Right now, we slowly open our doors to create tours and experiences. Yeah.
That's great. And then there's also this mini murals art initiative. What
Absolutely.
is this? And, how are you involved in that?
So many people always often ask, particularly us, how do you engage the next generation, into beekeeping or sustainability or environmental practices? And I always respond, they already are. They're really excited. They just have to be given the platform, the opportunity to do something. And that's where we created Mini Murals. It's an art initiative designed to engage the next generation of leaders in sustainability. They go through a social curriculum where they learn a little bit about bee conservation, and based off that social curriculum, it inspires them to create inspiring artwork on all of our beehives so that they just not serve as bee farms, but living art galleries. So from, I would say, the course of 2018, we worked with over 12 local, we worked in commission with 12 local artists in the city of Detroit.
Is there a way for people to see the art that's come out of this? Like, if our listeners are like, I really want to find where this is, where would they go to see that?
Yes, I will say definitely join the Hive, and by following us on social media. Visit our Instagram at Detroit Hives. We have tons of posts of our beautifully decorated art mini murals, and we also have some cool videos and behind the scenes of them painting some of this cool artwork.
But of course, they can always see it in person. Oh, yeah. Like with our mini murals, they serve as living art galleries.
And where do they find those locations? If they want to see them in person, where would they go?
Yeah, so definitely visit our website, shoot us an email, and we can schedule a tour where you can see all the buzz and why Detroit's a place to be.
Yeah. So with it being a beehive, we have, have them set by appointment only. We don't have them really open for everybody to kind of come out and see.
Well, that makes sense. And then you also have this Be Well care package. What are these and how have they proven incredibly important during the pandemic?
Right. So just like many others, our organization has been affected by COVID-19. Things just really took an impact back in 2020. And we just didn't want to stand there. We want to find a way to still be of help, pun intended, to be of help to the residents. And we found a way to have the bees be a part of the buzz by creating Be Well care packages. And what Be Well care packages is a basic essentials that include PPE, our local raw honey, beeswax candles, but also a hot meal for those that are living within underserved communities. And this is just to help reverse the incline with COVID-19 to decrease the curve with COVID-19, but also provide these packages to our frontline responders, our healthcare workers, and also our local heroes. And we've been able to deliver over 300 Be Well care packages. This was completely funded by fundraising, by raising funds through IOB, but in addition to receiving grants through Wayne Metro.
And to our listeners, I always say, if you like what you're hearing, you love these programs, right? These organizations doing amazing work like Detroit Hives need your help. So if you're listening right now and you're like, man, I really love what's going on here, and these Be Well care packages sound amazing, and I want to help expand beehives in Detroit, I want to help out the community, how would they do that? Like, where do you just go to your website to make a donation?
I'm glad you mentioned that. So people can always visit our website, DetroitHives.org, to make a donation. They can follow us on social media. We appreciate in-kind donations, monetary donations, but also emotional currency. And what emotional currency is: liking our pages, sharing our pages, and just really providing that overall support. And what we really love about the Be Well care packages is that it's very similar to my story of being sick, working to build my immune system by using local raw honey to help with your immune system, but also with local beeswax candles. It helps provide respiratory support. So really trying to educate folks on the importance of local raw honey, the importance of bee products, immunotherapy, and apitherapy products from bees, from growing your own food, from learning how to create your own opportunities. So really, it's really a great way to really tie in what we're doing with the community in a very sensitive time of need during COVID-19.
And I'm assuming that you have this volunteer base, right? That's helping you. So, and you'd spoken to this earlier about the economic growth, how beehives help to improve economics, improve job opportunities. Is that also happening within these growth of these hives and also creating this product?
Absolutely. You can't, you just have to imagine what it takes to transform a vacant lot. Particularly, let's start with the East Warren apiary that's been abandoned for over 10 years. Over time, everything has pretty much happened to this vacant lot, from dumping to trash to wild trees. So there's a need to hire landscapers, contractors. There's a need to hire many people just to help with landscaping design. There's a need to work with volunteers. So just beginning to do that, we work with lots of local landscapers in the community to have them maintain our our lawn, to have them help clear out things within our vacant lots. But in addition to that, this allows us to work with the community, local churches, local community organizations, or neighbors for volunteer civic engagement opportunities. Also, with being able to harvest the honey, we work with local restaurants. We also create events where we do honey tasting to create that community engagement, to provide a sense of community back into the neighborhood from what used to be vacant or blighted.
And also using our honey, also using our beeswax, partner up with local businesses here to create products. So using our honey and our beeswax to create those products that they have out that they want to add honey and beeswax to.
For example, we partner with Paule, and they use our honey to make fresh ingredients with dog treats.
Yeah. And then also partnering with another local business. It's a hair care product.
Cream Blends.
Yep.
And Cream Blends uses our beeswax to make lip moisturizer.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I was looking online and looking at the different ways that the hives in Detroit are partnering with the businesses there, and it's totally a honeycomb, right? It's totally completely connected, and obviously, there was one place, Bourbon was one of the honeybee hive locations, was adding honey to this local bourbon distillery, and I love these connections. Mm-hmm. Another collaboration that you have, which is pretty cool, is that you have done a project with a music producer, artist, and DJ, Nick Speed, to create this music track using the sound of bees. I would love to know more about that because it sounds amazing.
Yes. That's definitely a project that we're working on. What we're trying to do is really inspire and educate the next generation of leaders in sustainability. We're trying to find really cool, innovative ways to educate others on bee conservation, to find ways to change the narrative about bees. And most times when you see bees or hear about the buzzing insect, the bees, they're always portrayed as this stingy insect that we should always run away from. Or
like a scary sound.
Yeah, or in cartoons, you always see a bee with its stinger out. When, in fact, when bees are out flying and foraging, they don't have their stinger always out. It's only a defense mechanism, that they would use at extreme, conditions. But really just trying to find a way to make, or really trying to find ways to reach the audience that may be afraid of bees, the audience that may not want to have an interest in learning about pollinators or may not be a fan of science. We're really trying to engage that audience.
Yeah. So people that were once like us.
Yeah, that was us.
That was us.
And we know that it has to be somewhat packaged differently. Most people are not going to crack open a book and learn about pollinators. But we got to find unique ways to captivate them, to get them engaged. From a video about making an instrumental beat can lead to another post, may lead to them wanting to come volunteer. Next, it may lead to, hey, I want to learn more about pollinators and why they're so important. And that's where we find ways to just create those introductions.
Yeah, so it was a great opportunity where we got to talk to Nick Speed and for him to learn also about honeybees and their importance. So it was kind of like how we do with our mini murals curriculum and talking to artists. It's the same thing with talking with like Nick Speed and creating instrumental.
Yeah, that's where we really measure our impact. Many often we have people that visit our apiaries or that volunteer. They have a strong passion for pollinators. They have a strong passion for honeybees that really love honeybees and really love planting flowers. But once again, is how do you reach those that aren't involved into bees or into pollinators or are afraid of them or will be the next person that want to spray them. We want to reach that audience. We want to be able to make an impact that way. And that's why we really do a good job in trying to reach people that are afraid of bees or that don't have an interest in pollinators. Because once again, we were those people as well. We didn't come from that background. I came from a background where all my parents were running from the bees or swatting at wasps or trying to get insects out of their home. So being able to educate them and they have importance and try to gain appreciation for all living things is definitely our goal.
Thank you for that. And for our listeners too, if you want to hear the song that was created by DJ Nick Speed and the Detroit Hives Bees, go to their Instagram page because the video is right there. It's pretty amazing. And we'll be right back after the break. Hey listeners, quick break here. We hope that you are enjoying EcoJustice Radio. You are listening to Revitalizing Detroit, one hive at a time, with host Jessica Aldrich, myself, and our guests Timothy Paul Jackson and Nicole Lindsey from Detroit Hives. Nicole and Timothy, we were talking about the vacant lots and being able to acquire these vacant lots in Detroit and create these, put these beehives on these vacant lots, create community, pollinate the community of Detroit and create sustainable communities. How are you acquiring this land? How is this land coming about and who's managing it?
Right. So we're acquiring the land through our community partnerships, starting with the Detroit Land Bank. Through our existing partnerships, we're able to buy back vacant lots in the city and transform them into green productive spaces. But in addition to that, we also receive support from donations. People are finding ways to donate land to our organization, or we will buy back the vacant lots from private owners, whether a private owner is looking to sell, we would like to purchase that vacant lot as well. So we either buy them back from the city or real estate or private owners are donating to our organization, or we'll personally buy them from private owners.
And so we are the ones that oversee and take care of those lots, along with volunteers that we have that helps us to maintain those vacant lots as well.
As Detroit continues to grow, the vacant lots will start to disappear. What is necessary to maintain what you have there with the hives and that will actually continue to grow Detroit's urban bee farming and native bee populations well into the future?
Right. So through our community partnership, we're able to purchase up to 9 lots a year. So, of course, if we were able to create a 5-year plan, that means 45 vacant lots that we can restore for the pollinator. That means 45 vacant lots that we can help support the conservation of pollinators. But in addition to that, once again, we partner with urban gardens. We also partner with other local businesses to support the ethical treatment of pollinators. What we mean by that is that we partner with the Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy, and we introduced and passed a resolution with Detroit City Council recognizing Detroit as an official bee city. What this means is that we now have the city support in supporting the ethical treatment of pollinators. This means not spraying any harmful chemicals on any of the city's property, but also working with residents in the community to educate them on bee conservation and how they can play their part in saving the bees as well.
So as we continue to grow and buy land, we're going to make sure that, that the city includes our insects and our pollinators in our green spaces and reserving those as the city is being developed.
In addition to that, we also worked and did some research with the University of Detroit Mercy. And based on this research, we want to find out if our hives have enough food sources to support, we want to make sure that our communities have enough food sources for our pollinators. If this research determines that we do have enough food sources for our pollinators, great, we're doing great. Everything is doing good for our pollinators and honeybees. But if this research proves that there lacks food sources for our hives, then this gives us the opportunity to go to the city to say we're looking for more green space to support this type of project. And we're in need of more green spaces to support this kind of initiative.
Has the city council been supportive of this?
Right. So we just working on an amendment for the city of Detroit, and they have been supportive. They've been supportive by recognizing us as receiving the Spirit of Detroit Award. We've also been able to attend events and really share with the great work we're doing for the city.
if another metropolitan area or city, whatever, big or small, wants to do the same, wants to be like, I want my city to be a bee city, what would you tell them? What's those steps? What do they need to say to the city council or
Right.
to the officials to say this needs to happen?
Well, first, let me just talk about what a bee city means or what type of bees we're referring to. When it relates to bee city, they're mainly referring to native bees, not honeybees. So once again, Michigan is home to 467 native bees, like bumblebees or sweat bees, leafcutter bees, mason bees, orchard bees. The list goes on. But it doesn't pertain to honeybees. My first thing is I would say, contact maybe your local beekeeping association or organizations or environment to create a sense of community, to get others involved. And then look out and reach out to the Xerces Society. That's where you can sign your city up to become a Bee City USA affiliate.
What was that called again?
It's called the Xerces Society. That's where they offer the opportunities for your city to be listed as a Bee City USA affiliate.
Great. Thank you for that. And before you had mentioned about the different types of bees and fear of the bees that many people do have. That's a shared fear.
Mm-hmm.
They either they love the bumblebee and the honeybee, or maybe they're afraid of it. But a lot of times people are like, I love the bumblebee. I love the honeybee. Let's make sure that we keep it hydrated. Let's make sure that we have those available to us. But then they dislike, right, the more seemingly aggressive bees like the wasps and the hornets. Should they be afraid of these bees? And what is the purpose? Do these aggressive types or seemingly aggressive types have a purpose?
Well, Jessica, that's exactly why they are afraid of what they think are bees, because many people associate those wasps or the hornets as bees when they're completely two different species.
They're not bees at all.
Yeah. So bees and yellow jackets and hornets, they're two different species, but they're all pollinators. They do visit flowers and they do pollinate. They do have a purpose. But mainly wasps, when they're not visiting flowers, they also eat other insects and they balance out the insect world. They have
go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just about to say other insects like honeybees.
Yeah. And other insects alike, they eat other insects to balance out the insect world. But also, they don't build up honey stores like honeybees. So you have to equate this to being a good financial investor or saver. Are you working all year round to save your money in case of a hardship? Or do you squander all your resources? And in case of a hardship, you ran out of money, and now you're trying to do whatever it takes to provide for your family. The same thing as it relates to honeybees versus wasps. Honeybees work all spring, summer, fall, and winter to build up honey stores. In most cases, they never even tried the honey that they've been building up. They never tried it. And they create a future for the next generation, their future. That's where they're the true essence of sustainability. Whereas with wasps, they eat other insects and they don't build up any honey stores. So when we begin to approach the late fall, they're looking for any type of carbohydrate they can find, whether it's from a flower, whether it's from pop, whether it's from juice cans, whether they had to rob a honeybee hive, where they had to come rob your picnic for your barbecue or anything. And when they visit you, they can smell food or any type of sugary substance miles away. So in essence, they're hungry. And they will sting you or do whatever it takes to get food to provide for their colony or for themselves.
Yeah. And just to clarify, so wasps don't build any honey at all. So they go out and get insects every day, every hour, all the time to feed their larvae. And so, like you said, once the wasp nests are built up during the late summer, then you start seeing them, a lot of them. So you want to reserve what we would do at our bee farm. We feed them. So we provide a local source of food for them.
The reason why, once again, when we have tours, we will have yellow jackets in the past that would visit our guests. And it sometimes make that experience a little uncomfortable. And it will always say, there's a bee in front of me. That's a bee. We have to say, no, that's actually a wasp. But it's really hard to tell to the naked eye. So we want to find ways to mitigate wasps visiting our guests from tours. And what we did was we fed them. We fed the masses. Not only did we feed yellow jackets, but we also fed bald-faced hornets as well. We fed them a sugar substitute where they've been able to visit that sugar substitute every day and take it back to the colony. And one thing that we noticed is that not only did they not bother our guests, but they did not bother our honeybees because what they're just looking for is just something to eat.
What is your vision for a sustainable community for Detroit?
Gotcha. Our vision for a sustainable community, I will say that we're working to create a more sustainable Detroit by reducing the number of vacant lots in our city while increasing pollinator populations in the community.
So how can people play their role in protecting bees and making sure that these bee colonies thrive?
I think a great way that people can help support our native bees or our honeybee population is by creating habitats. Wherever you're at, you can grow or wildflowers. Even if you stay in an apartment, maybe plant some in a pot or, creating like this little wildflower habitat on your little patio or in your window. But also sitting out some water for them. When foragers are going out looking for nectar and pollen, they get thirsty just like we do. So if you have a garden nearby, place a little small shallow bowl of water, add some pebbles, some marbles or some rocks, and create some water in there because they're great flyers. They're not great swimmers. And so they need something to land on. And another great way is, people can get those little native bee homes as well. Now, when you have like carpenter bees, they're part of the bumblebee family. Some people don't like them drilling or creating little holes inside of their decks or they're somewhere in their homes or in their garages. They have like these little native bee homes that you can buy or you can create on your own. They like to burrow in holes. So maybe if you buy like something similar that they sell them at the store, or you can build them yourself.
I will also just say share the buzz. Too often, once again, a lot of the fears are passed on consciously or subconsciously about bees or wasps, but really just working to just educate your children or someone else on why these bees are so important. It can work wonders.
And if we have people listening right now that are thinking to themselves like, raising bees sounds like something I could do, that I could get into, or either at my place or maybe through an organization, maybe they can't have their own hives or, you just said ways that people can help the bees at home. What if people really want to get into raising bee colonies or help an organization do that? Where can they get more information? Do you have any recommendations?
Always education. We always say, look for your local beekeepers association that you have everything that you need. They have classes there. You can find mentors. You can find a place where to purchase your beekeeping equipment, your beekeeping suits. It is an avenue for everything that you need for beekeeping. So join a beekeeping association. Use Google as a tool to search that out. Also, there is YouTube. Tons of YouTube videos available. There's tons of books out there. But join a beekeeping association. That where you can get a mentor. You can take the classes. Some of them have hands-on classes too. If you're staying in a place where you don't have a way to keep hives yourselves, I'm pretty sure you can volunteer with them as well and get your hands-on experience.
Now, in some cases, rare cases where there may not be a local beekeeping association or you may not have access to travel to that local beekeeping association, definitely try to find a local environmental organization that are raising bees or practicing urban beekeeping. And try to volunteer with them or see if they seek it or create any type of workshops or events that you can attend to.
Now, you all founded the National Day of Urban Beekeeping. Is that right? Did I say that right?
Yes, we founded National Urban Beekeeping Day. First and foremost, it's celebrated annually July 19th. And what National Urban Beekeeping Day is a day to celebrate urban beekeepers in urban settings. We want to find a way to really involve the community with urban beekeeping. So there's 3 initiatives that we created. One is that we work with urban beekeepers to practice sustainable beekeeping by monitoring and treating their hives for mites. 2, we're working with community residents to plant our national flower, the black-eyed Susan. And 3, we encourage residents to support an urban beekeeper by purchasing any of their products to sustain their organization or business.
How do people find out more about Detroit Hives?
Yeah, so we welcome once again others to join the Hive. Visit our website at DetroitHives.org. Follow us on all of our social media outlets at Detroit Hives, or feel free to shoot us an email. We'll love to respond and get to share what the buzz is all about.
Yep, and our email is info@DetroitHives.org.
Are there any other resources or organizations that you might recommend people listen to or check out?
Absolutely. Definitely our partners, Pollinator Partnership, the Bee Conservancy, Sierra Club Organization, Exertion Society, the Southeastern Michigan Beekeepers Association, the Michigan Beekeepers Association, the American Beekeeping Federation.
Also, Michigan State University has a lot of info about bees.
Michigan State University Extension.
Well, that's great. There's a lot of information that we received today. A lot of things for our listeners to check out. At least for our listeners, please support Detroit Hives, and then also, do your part in helping to feed and protect these pollinators. And I just want to thank you. Thank you both, Timothy and Nicole, for being here today, the co-founder and co-executive directors of Detroit Hives, for being on Eco Justice Radio. It has been a great honor to have you here today.
Same here, and thank you, Eco Justice Radio, for featuring us.
Yeah, it's been a great time.
Thank you.
Thank you to our guests today, Timothy Paul Jackson and Nicole Lindsey from Detroit Hives. And thank you to our listeners for joining us. This has been Revitalizing Detroit, one hive at a time. Please connect with us on social media. You can find us at Eco Justice Radio, SoCal 350, and Adventures in Waste. And if you like what you heard, you know what to do. Go to that podcast, share the episodes, subscribe to it, go to ecojusticeradio.org. You have been listening to Eco Justice Radio, a project of SoCal 350. The show can be found on all major podcast apps and at ecojusticeradio.org. Executive producer Jack Eit, producer and host Jessica Aldridge, engineer Blake Lampkin, and original music by Javier Cadre. And until next time, remember, the power is yours.